Being alpha isn't about dominance, it's about direction. The loudest guy in the room, often the most insecure. Real alpha energy isn't about barking orders, chasing attention, or flexing your status. It's about quiet confidence, discipline, control, not over others, but over yourself. This video is your reset button. We're tearing down the fake alpha myth and building something stronger in its place. A man who leads through integrity, not intimidation. Someone who doesn't need to act tough, because he already is. If you've ever felt pressure to be the alpha, but knew deep down that the advice was garbage, you're not alone. Let's set the record straight. The term alpha male gets thrown around like a badge of honor, but few know what it actually means. Most people associate it with dominance, aggression, or control, but that's a myth. It's not leadership, it's performance. Let's rewind. The original alpha theory came from animal studies, especially wolves. In those early observations, the dominant wolf was seen as the pack leader. That image was picked up by pop culture and twisted into a stereotype, the cocky, loud, no-nonsense male who always takes charge. But here's the kicker. The scientist who coined the term later admitted he got it wrong. Wild wolf packs aren't led by bullies. They're led by nurturing, stable, and experienced adults, often parents. The dominance model was based on wolves in captivity. Translation? It was fake from the start. Still, that false narrative stuck. It gave birth to a toxic brand of masculinity, one that encourages men to silence emotion, chase status, and project strength, even when they're falling apart inside. The result? A generation of men pretending to be confident while being terrified of vulnerability. Being alpha has nothing to do with barking orders or puffing your chest. It's about having direction, knowing who you are, and staying grounded in that truth no matter the pressure. Let's make this practical. You walk into a room. Who gets noticed? It's not always the one making noise. It's the one who seems centered. Calm posture, steady gaze, controlled movements. That's presence. That's power. And it doesn't need volume. The fake alpha thrives on control. He talks over people, seeks validation, and flexes whenever possible. His identity depends on being seen, but real leadership comes from consistency, not theatrics. A true alpha doesn't compete with others. He competes with who he was yesterday. He's focused on improving himself, not proving himself. Let's go deeper. This misconception has real consequences. Young men absorb these outdated models and think they need to dominate to be respected. Relationships suffer, mental health declines, communication breaks down. The cycle continues. That's why this conversation matters. It's time we replaced that broken model with something that works, something human. The modern alpha isn't interested in looking powerful, he's interested in being useful. He's driven by principle, not pride. He knows when to lead and when to listen. He doesn't use others to feel bigger, he empowers others to grow with him. Leadership, at its core, is service. The strongest men aren't feared, they're trusted. They aren't loud, they're clear. They don't control, they inspire. The misconception also assumes being alpha means going solo, lone wolf, untouchable, stoic, but no man leads alone. Real alphas build teams, create safety, and elevate others. There's strength in admitting you don't have all the answers. There's courage in asking for help. That's not weakness, that's awareness. Now here's the truth. If you've ever felt uncomfortable trying to act like the alpha stereotype, it's because your instincts are right. You're not supposed to perform masculinity. You're supposed to live it with honesty and strength. Real alpha energy isn't about forcing dominance. It's about choosing discipline. It's knowing your values and living them, even when no one's watching. This is your invitation to ditch the costume and step into something real. A grounded, clear, self-led version of yourself that doesn't need applause to feel powerful. And if you're ready to leave behind the noise and focus on becoming the kind of man people respect without fear, keep watching. Before we continue with the video and my breakdown of what a true alpha actually looks like, I've got one quick ask. I'm working toward 1,000 subscribers, and your support makes a huge difference. If this message resonates, please hit that subscribe button and help this content reach more people. A true alpha doesn't seek to dominate, he seeks to elevate. His strength isn't in how loud he speaks or how many follow him blindly. It's in how grounded he remains while the world around him shifts. You won't find him scrambling to prove his worth, because his worth isn't built on other people's approval. It's built on values that don't waver. One of the first things you notice about this kind of man is his discipline. He doesn't just show up when it's convenient. He builds systems, routines, and habits that keep him aligned with his purpose. Whether it's physical training, focused work, or simply managing his time with precision, he doesn't negotiate with laziness. His self-respect shows up in the structure of his day, but discipline without emotional balance is hollow. A real alpha knows how to sit with discomfort. When emotions rise, whether anger, disappointment, or fear, he doesn't offload them onto others. He pauses. He reflects. He understands that emotional control is not about suppression, but about response. That maturity gives him the upper hand in any conflict. While others are reacting, he's deciding. This presence also allows him to be remarkably clear. He's not wishy-washy. He doesn't hide behind vague answers or overthink every move. He makes decisions with confidence because he trusts himself to handle whatever happens next. That decisiveness makes him someone others naturally turn to when chaos hits. He doesn't wait for consensus. He leads with clarity. That leadership, though, doesn't come from ego. It comes from integrity. He doesn't shift his character depending on who's watching. Whether in private or public, his behavior aligns with his beliefs. He says what he means and he follows through, even when it costs him. That kind of consistency builds a quiet authority that no bragging can replicate. He's also someone who recognizes the strength in respect. He doesn't see others as competition to crush, but as people to connect with. He listens fully, without rushing to respond. He values boundaries, his own and those of others. And because he doesn't feel the need to dominate, he creates space for others to grow around him. That safety makes his presence magnetic. Most importantly, his presence isn't performative. He doesn't need the spotlight to feel strong. His strength is subtle. It's in how he handles pressure, keeps his word, maintains control, and builds momentum when others stall. He doesn't just lead, he models what grounded power actually looks like. The way a man speaks reveals far more than his words. It reflects his confidence, clarity, and control. A true alpha doesn't just talk, he communicates. And there's a difference. Communication is intentional. It has direction, not just volume. He doesn't rely on excessive words or grand gestures to be heard. His message carries weight because he's clear on what he stands for. Each sentence is measured. Every pause has purpose. He doesn't ramble to fill silence, and he doesn't race to respond. Silence doesn't threaten him. It gives his words space to land. But speaking well starts with listening deeply. The real alpha listens not just to reply, but to understand. He observes tone, body language, and emotion. He reads the room, not just the words. That awareness makes people feel seen, not just heard. It creates trust, because people recognize when they're actually being paid attention to. His tone remains steady, even when the conversation gets heated. There's no need to shout. He's composed, not because he's detached, but because he values precision over reaction. Emotional outbursts aren't part of his vocabulary. He chooses his words carefully, especially when the stakes are high. His voice reassures rather than threatens. Nonverbal communication is just as powerful. Posture, eye contact, pace. These things speak before any words do. He doesn't fidget or shrink into himself. His movements are controlled, purposeful. He carries himself like someone who knows who he is, which makes others naturally listen. He also knows the power of boundaries in conversation. He can say no without guilt, express needs without confrontation, and hold space for disagreement without taking it personally. Assertiveness is his default, not aggression, not submission. He doesn't overpower, he directs. At the core of his communication is clarity. He says what he means, and he means what he says. No mixed signals, no guessing games. That kind of clarity makes him dependable, not just in speech, but in action. This is what real influence looks like. Not control, not intimidation, but connection through deliberate speech. The kind of presence that quiets noise, centers attention, and leads without forcing. Powerful men aren't defined by how many people they command, but by the quality of the relationships they maintain. A true alpha doesn't isolate himself in an illusion of superiority. He builds meaningful bonds rooted in mutual trust and honest connection. He doesn't approach others as tools to be used or obstacles to be overcome. Every interaction is grounded in respect. Whether he's talking to a friend, a partner, or a stranger, he shows up with the same consistent energy, attentive, grounded, and real. Manipulation has no place in his interactions. He doesn't twist words or play games to gain favor. What you see is what you get. That transparency draws people in because there's no guessing, no double meanings. He creates safety by simply being consistent. He also values emotional availability, not in the performative sense, but in quiet moments where he lets down his guard to show genuine care. He's not afraid to ask how someone's really doing, or to share something honest about himself. These moments are where real loyalty is built. In relationships, he respects independence. He doesn't seek to control or overshadow. Instead, he creates space for others to express, grow, and thrive. His confidence isn't threatened by someone else's strength. He celebrates it. He knows that power shared is power multiplied. He knows when to give and when to step back. He offers support without creating dependence. He protects his own peace while remaining generous with his time and energy. Balance is what he strives for, not control. And when conflict arises, he faces it with clarity. He doesn't avoid difficult conversations. He engages with empathy, clarity, and a desire to resolve, not win. That approach builds deeper bonds, not resentment. These are the connections that last, not because they're easy, but because they're real. And the man who leads with authenticity will always be the one others choose to stand beside. There's no strength in standing still. A man committed to leading himself doesn't coast on past wins, he evolves. Growth is never optional for someone serious about becoming his best. He doesn't wait for life to push him into action. He actively seeks discomfort because he knows that challenge is where real growth lives. Whether it's reading something that stretches his mind, learning a new skill, or confronting a personal flaw, he's not afraid of starting from scratch. He takes feedback seriously, not as a threat, but as a tool. He knows he doesn't have all the answers, and he's okay with that. What matters is that he's always learning, always refining, always moving forward. He's disciplined about improvement. He sets goals, tracks progress, and holds himself to the standard he expects from others. He doesn't get stuck in excuses. When he falls short, he recalibrates instead of retreating. Failure doesn't break him, it sharpens him, and he understands the value of reflection. He takes time to examine his patterns, his choices, and his impact on others. That self-awareness fuels intentional growth, not reactive change. There's also a quiet power in knowing your limits. He sets boundaries around his time, his energy, and his attention. That's not selfish, it's strategic. It allows him to protect his focus and stay aligned with what actually matters. He also invests in his health, not just physically, but mentally. He doesn't ignore stress or mask insecurity. He addresses them, builds tools, and seeks support when needed. Strength, for him, is about wholeness, not appearances. The man who grows intentionally becomes the one others look to for guidance, not because he's flawless, but because he's never stagnant. He leads by motion, not position. And over time, that movement speaks louder than words ever could. The real alpha doesn't perform, he lives with purpose. He builds himself through action, not noise. In every choice, every word, and every relationship, he leads with clarity, not control. This kind of man doesn't chase power, he builds presence. He doesn't need to prove anything, because who he is speaks louder than any image. He listens, he grows, he shows up. That's the modern alpha. And here's the truth, the world doesn't need louder voices, it needs stronger examples. So let's turn this into a conversation. What's one trait you believe defines a real alpha today? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I read every one. If this video gave you a new perspective or challenged what you thought you knew, hit like and subscribe. I'm building a community of men committed to growth, not performance, and you belong in it.